Part 1, The Whispering Snow. The wind was gentle that night, carrying whispers from the farthest reaches of the frozen lands. Snowflakes danced like silver petals, drifting through the silent air, settling upon the vast, endless fields of white. And within that quiet world, beneath the glow of a pale moon, a story began to unfold. "Did you hear it?" the little girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her grandmother, wrapped in thick furs, smiled gently. "What did you hear, my child?" "The snow. It sings," the girl replied, pressing her small hands against the frost-kissed window pane. "It tells stories." The old woman nodded, her eyes twinkling like stars lost in the night. "Ah, you have the gift," she said. "Not everyone can hear the voice of winter." The fire crackled softly in the hearth, its golden light flickering against the stone walls of the little cottage. The wind outside carried the sound of distant bells, soft, distant, almost like a memory floating through time. The girl turned, curiosity shining in her wide, sleepy eyes. "Tell me a story, grandmother. Tell me about the Frost King." The old woman chuckled, her voice as warm as the thick woolen blankets wrapped around them. "The Frost King. Oh, my dear. He is older than the oldest mountains, colder than the deepest river. He lives beyond the great ice cliffs, where the sky touches the earth and the stars sleep in frozen lakes. He is the ruler of all things winter, the keeper of the northern lights, and the guardian of secrets hidden beneath the snow." The little girl nestled deeper into her blankets, her eyelids growing heavier, her breath slowing to match the quiet rhythm of the night. "And once," the old woman continued, her voice soft as drifting snow, "there was a time when the Frost King's heart was warm." The girl's eyes fluttered closed, but in her mind, the story began to take shape, a world of ice and wonder, of silver skies and endless winter nights. And so, as the snow whispered against the windows, the tale of the Frost King began. Part 2, The Frozen Kingdom. Beyond the edge of the known world, where the sky stretched endlessly over a land of ice and silence, the Frost King reigned. His palace was not made of stone, nor wood, nor gold, but of purest frost, walls that shimmered like diamond under the pale moon, towers that rose like frozen waves caught in time. The air itself was his to command, and when he breathed, the wind carried his whisper across the endless tundra. But the Frost King was alone. His court was silent, filled only with the slow, steady rhythm of snow falling upon ice. No laughter echoed through the grand halls. No voices stirred the stillness of his kingdom. Only the stars above bore witness to his rule, and even they seemed distant, cold, untouchable. Yet there had been a time, long ago, when warmth had touched his heart. He had once known the feeling of sunlight upon his skin, had once walked through forests where leaves turned golden and rivers sang in soft ripples. But the memory was buried deep beneath layers of ice, locked away where even he could not reach it. And so, the Frost King sat upon his throne of frozen crystal, watching the world through the swirling mists of winter. He listened to the breath of the wind, to the soft shifting of glaciers, to the faint, distant echo of voices carried across the snow. And then, one night, he heard something different, a whisper, soft as falling snowflakes, a voice, faint at first, like a melody drifting through time. It did not belong to the wind, nor to the stars, nor to the cold earth beneath his feet. It was something else entirely, something warm, something alive. He rose from his throne, his long cloak trailing behind him like a shadow of frost. He stepped forward, past the grand pillars of ice, past the silent halls where ancient memories lay frozen in time. He followed the sound, his breath curling like mist in the cold night air, and then, for the first time in 1,000 years, he saw something unexpected, a light, small and flickering, like a single candle in the darkness, a tiny flame, defiant against the cold. A presence that did not belong in his world of ice and silence. And in that moment, something deep within the Frost King's heart stirred, a memory, a longing, a whisper of warmth, long forgotten. And so, as the stars watched from above, the Frost King took his first step toward the unknown, toward the voice, toward the light, toward something he had lost long ago. Part 3, The Flickering Flame. The Frost King moved through the silent halls of his palace, his footsteps soundless upon the frozen floor. The walls shimmered with the icy glow of 1,000 winters. But his gaze was fixed upon something else, something small, something fragile. The flickering light. It was unlike anything in his kingdom. It pulsed gently, a warm golden hue against the deep blue of the frozen air. It did not shatter like ice, nor melt into nothingness like snow beneath the sun. It remained steady, persistent, and the voice that had called to him, was near. He followed the sound, his breath curling in the air like mist. The palace doors opened before him without a touch, revealing the vast white landscape beyond. The wind carried whispers across the ice, and beneath the glow of the pale moon, he saw her, a girl, wrapped in a simple cloak, standing in the middle of the frozen expanse. Her breath rose in soft clouds, her arms tucked close to her body for warmth. In her hands, cupped gently, was the flame. She did not belong here, and yet, here she stood. Her presence an impossible thing in a land where warmth had no place. The Frost King watched in silence. The air around her should have stolen her warmth. The cold should have made her shiver. But she did not shrink from the chill. She lifted her gaze, her eyes meeting his. There was no fear in them, only curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice a whisper against the night. The Frost King did not answer at once. He had not spoken in a long time. Words had no place in his world of ice and stillness. And yet, as he looked at the small flame she carried, he felt something stir within him, something forgotten, something distant. At last, he spoke, his voice deep as the winter winds. "I am the Frost King." The girl tilted her head slightly, as if considering the name. "You are cold," she said, "but not cruel." The Frost King's expression did not change, but he felt the words settle within him like a whisper of warmth. He had been called many things over the centuries, distant, merciless, untouchable, but never this, never something so simple, so true. The girl extended her hands, offering the flickering flame toward him. "It does not burn," she said. "It only glows." The Frost King hesitated. Fire and ice did not belong together. They could not exist in the same space without one destroying the other. And yet, the flame did not waver. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above the golden light. The warmth brushed against his skin. Unfamiliar and strange. It did not burn, it simply was. The girl smiled. See? The Frost King did not answer. He only stared at the flame, watching as its soft light reflected in the endless ice around them. For the first time in 1,000 years, his world was not only cold, it was something more. And in that quiet moment, beneath the vast winter sky, the frost and the flame stood side by side. Part 4, The Heart of Winter. The wind whispered between the towering ice spires as the Frost King gazed at the tiny flame cradled in the girl's hands. It did not flicker in fear. It did not shrink from his presence. It remained soft, warm, steady. The girl watched him with eyes full of quiet wonder, unafraid of the cold air swirling around her. Snowflakes danced in the space between them, catching the light of the flame and reflecting like stars in a frozen sky. The Frost King had seen many winters, had commanded the storms, had shaped the ice that stretched across the land, but never had he encountered something so small, so fragile, yet so unyielding. He looked at her again. Why are you here? The girl tilted her head slightly, considering his question. I followed the snow, she said. I heard its voice, and it led me here. The Frost King frowned slightly. The snow has no voice. But it does, she whispered. You simply forgot how to listen. The wind stirred, carrying a breath of silence between them. The Frost King had long since stopped listening to the world beyond his frozen throne. The whispers of the wind, the sigh of the snow, once, perhaps, they had meant something. But centuries had passed, and time had turned them into nothing more than echoes. The girl extended her hands again, offering the golden flame. Do you want to listen again? The Frost King hesitated. He was winter itself, the keeper of the cold. Fire was his opposite, his undoing. And yet, the warmth did not threaten him. Cautiously, he reached forward, his fingers brushing against the golden glow. The warmth curled around his hand like a gentle breath. It did not melt him. It did not change him. It simply was. A strange sensation bloomed deep within his chest, a faint hum, a distant memory, something long buried beneath the ice of countless winters, a feeling, something he had not allowed himself to hold in centuries. The girl smiled, her breath soft against the cold. See? The winter does not need to be silent. The Frost King closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth settle. In the quiet stillness, he listened, and for the first time in 1,000 years, he heard the snow, not as a hollow wind, nor as the sharp bite of frost, but as something else, something softer, a whisper, a song. And deep within his frozen heart, something began to stir. Part 5, The Song of Snowflakes. The Frost King stood still, the golden glow of the small flame reflecting in the endless expanse of ice around them. The wind had softened, no longer a howling force but a gentle murmur through the frozen spires. For the first time in 1,000 years, winter did not feel empty. The girl cupped her hands around the flame, protecting it from the wind. Do you hear it now? She asked. The Frost King closed his eyes. At first, there was only silence, the deep, endless hush of a world frozen in time. But beneath that quiet, something stirred, a whisper, a rhythm, the sound of snowflakes landing softly upon the earth, the delicate crackling of ice shifting under the weight of time. the deep, steady breath of the world as it lay resting beneath the winter sky. It was not silence at all, it was music. The Frost King opened his eyes, and for the first time, he truly saw his kingdom. Not just the cold and the stillness, but the life within it, the way the snow moved like a slow dancing river. The way the ice shimmered like 1,000 tiny stars caught in a frozen sky. Winter had never been empty. He had simply forgotten how to see it. The girl smiled, as if she had known all along. "You were never alone," she said softly. The Frost King looked at her, the warmth of the small flame still lingering in the space between them. For centuries, he had ruled the ice, believing that was all he was meant to do. But now, as the snow whispered its gentle song around him, he realized something. Winter was not only cold, it was quiet, but not silent, still, but not lifeless. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the Frost King did not feel like a king. He felt like a part of something greater. Slowly, he lifted his hand, and from the tips of his fingers, a single snowflake formed. Unlike the sharp, jagged ice he had created before, this one was different. It was soft, delicate, woven with the quiet rhythm of winter's song. The girl watched as it drifted from his hand, spiraling gently through the air before landing upon the flame she carried. But instead of vanishing, the two simply existed together, the frost and the fire, side by side. The Frost King took a breath, deep and slow. He had spent centuries guarding the cold, believing it to be his only purpose. But now, standing beside the girl and her quiet flame, he realized something else. Winter was not only an ending, it was also the beginning of something new. Part 6, The Thawing Heart. The night stretched endlessly over the frozen land, a vast canvas of deep blue and silver. The stars twinkled softly, their light reflecting upon the untouched snow. The Frost King stood beside the girl, the warmth of her small flame casting a golden glow upon the ice. For centuries, he had ruled this world alone, believing winter to be his burden, his solitude his destiny. But as he listened to the whisper of the snow, as he watched the tiny flame dance without fear, he understood something he had long forgotten. Winter was not loneliness. Winter was rest. It was a pause between seasons, a breath before new life, a hush before the song of spring. The girl turned to him, her voice as gentle as the falling snow. "Will you come with me?" The Frost King hesitated. He had never left his palace of ice, never stepped beyond the endless reach of his frozen world. But now, for the first time, he felt something stir within him, a curiosity, a longing, a warmth. He raised his hand once more, and from his fingertips, a second snowflake formed. It was soft, delicate, unlike the cold shards of ice he had once created. It drifted through the air, settling gently upon the girl's outstretched palm. And then, something changed. A shimmer spread outward from where the snowflake had landed. It was subtle at first, a faint glow upon the ice, a soft sigh in the wind. But as the moments passed, the change deepened. The frost beneath their feet softened. The ice above them gleamed, no longer cold and distant but alive with light. The wind carried the sound of something new, water, deep beneath the frozen lakes, beginning to stir. The world was waking. The girl smiled, closing her fingers gently around the snowflake. "See?" she whispered. Winter does not last forever. The Frost King looked around, watching as his world shifted, not melting, not vanishing, but changing. The ice still sparkled. The snow still blanketed the land. But now, there was something else woven within it. A quiet promise. A warmth that did not erase the cold, but lived alongside it. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Frost King did not feel frozen. He felt whole. He stepped forward, and the girl took his hand, her warmth meeting his frost. Together, they walked across the endless snow, the golden flame flickering between them. The stars above shimmered brighter, and the wind carried their story across the land, a tale of frost and fire, of endings and beginnings, of winter and the warmth that lay waiting beneath. And as they walked, the snow continued to fall, not as a symbol of cold, but as a lullaby, a gentle hush, a whisper of rest, guiding the world into peaceful sleep. The Frost King closed his eyes, listening, and at last, he heard the quiet song of winter. The night drifts onward, soft as snowfall, gentle as a dream. The Frost King walks through his kingdom, no longer alone. And somewhere, in the vast and endless sky, the first light of dawn begins to stir. Sleep well. Let the snow carry you into dreams,